Now, let the roar of raids and the rumble of legend fade into silence. We leave the realm of warriors and wander into stillness. A burial mound, a ship beneath the soil, and two women, long gone, laid to rest with beauty, with mystery, and with questions that have never been fully answered. This is the story of the Oseberg ship. Discovered in 1904 on a quiet Norwegian farmstead, the Oseberg burial ship had slumbered undisturbed beneath a grassy mound for more than a millennium. It was found near the edge of the Oslofjord, wrapped in layers of earth and time. The ship itself was magnificent, not enormous by oceanic standards, but breathtaking in craftsmanship. Its wooden planks were curved and fitted with precision. Its keel was long and low, designed more for display or ceremonial passage than high seas raiding. Carvings of intertwined animals, dragons, serpents, and strange curling forms decorated its prow. It was not just a vessel, it was a statement, a final home, as carefully constructed as any palace. But who was it built for? Inside, archaeologists found the remains of two women. One older, estimated to be in her 70s. The other younger, perhaps in her 30s or 40s. Both had been laid on a bed, draped in fine cloth, surrounded by grave goods, tools, textiles, sleds, carts, animal bones, and ornate carvings. Some of the fabrics were dyed and patterned with astonishing intricacy. One cart bore painted panels and wooden reliefs that echoed the myths of Norse belief. And yet, neither woman was buried with weapons. There were no shields, no swords, no signs of martial legacy. This was not a warrior's grave. It was something else. Some believe the elder woman may have been a queen. Others suggest she was a Volva, a Norse seeress, someone who could speak to the spirits, interpret omens, and guide rituals. Her age alone would have conferred status. In a world where few survived to old age, a woman in her 70s was rare and likely revered. But despite the richness of the burial, we still do not know who they were. There are no inscriptions, no names preserved in text or song. The Oseberg women remain silent, anonymous, and profoundly present. What we do have are clues. The grave was looted in antiquity, a common fate for such burials, but many of the ceremonial objects remained. Among them were several sleds, richly decorated, suggesting high status and ritual importance. The placement of the bodies, the layering of goods, the construction of the ship, all hint at a carefully staged farewell, part religious, part theatrical. The ship may have been pulled across land, part of a procession. People may have wept, sung, or chanted. And then the women were laid inside. The mound was built over them, and time began its work. Even today, pieces of the Oseberg ship are displayed in Oslo's Viking Ship Museum, preserved in low light, the air cool and still. Visitors pass quietly, as though walking through a dream. What remains most striking about the Oseberg burial is not just its beauty, but its dignity. In a world often associated with conquest and chaos, here is a moment of calm, of reverence, of stillness. It reminds us that even in cultures defined by movement, there were pauses, moments set aside to honor the past, to shape memory, and to let go. And perhaps that is enough. We now step away from the tomb, from the silence of the soil and the still air of the burial chamber, and return to life. Not the life of farmers or seeresses, but that of the powerful, of feasting, politics, and poetry by firelight. When you're ready, we'll open the doors of a Viking chieftain's hall and see how the other half lived. Let us now rise from the earth, from the burial mound and the hush of memory, to the flickering warmth of a Viking hall. The chieftain's hall stands proudly at the heart of the settlement, larger than any other building, its walls reinforced with timber, its roof rising like a ship turned upside down. Smoke drifts from the narrow opening above the hearth, where the central fire burns day and night. Outside, life in the village continues. The lowing of cattle, the clink of iron from the smithy, the low murmur of gossip and trade. But inside the hall, another world unfolds. A place of status, a performance, of ritual and power. Imagine stepping inside. The light is low, filtered through cracks in the walls and the smoke-hazed air. The hearth glows steadily, casting long shadows across carved wooden pillars. A scent of roasted meat mingles with mead and pine resin. Animal skins lie across benches, and tapestries line the walls. Not bright or luxurious, but patterned with familiar symbols. Wolves, runes, ships. Here, the chieftain holds court. He is not a king in the modern sense, but his word carries weight. He settles disputes, hosts travelers, and presides over rituals. He is judged not only by his strength or his battle scars, but by his hospitality. A Viking feast is not an everyday event. It is deliberate, structured, a moment for storytelling, for alliance building, and for remembering ancestors. Servants move quietly through the crowd, carrying wooden trays with slabs of smoked fish, roasted boar, barley porridge, flatbreads, and bowls of preserved fruits. The mead, sweet, fermented honey wine, is passed in communal horns, always clockwise, always in rhythm. Conversation here is slow, purposeful. Warriors recount voyages. Skalds, Norse poets, recite verses by memory, their voices even and melodic. These sagas are not just entertainment. They are memory, history, law. In a world without written records, the spoken word carries everything forward. The chieftain listens, nods, occasionally interrupts with a dry joke or a quiet instruction. Beside him may sit his wife, herself a figure of influence, keeper of the household keys, distributor of gifts, guardian of lineage. Gifts are important. In this world, wealth is measured not by what one keeps, but by what one gives. The chieftain might bestow a finely wrought brooch, a ring, or a sword to a loyal follower, not as payment, but as honor. And the feast continues. There are moments of silence, broken only by the popping of the fire and the slow rhythm of chewing. There are songs, low and mournful, tales of gods, of giants, of trickery and fate. The gods are present in every utterance, not distant beings, but neighbors. Odin watches, Thor protects, Loki stirs. At the edges of the hall, younger men linger, listening, learning. Not just how to fight, but how to live, how to speak, how to sit, how to become part of the web that holds the community together. And when the night deepens, the hall grows quieter. The fire dims. People drift to sleep where they sit, wrapped in cloaks, their backs against the wall. The hall is not merely a place of governance or celebration. It is a dwelling, a shelter, a symbol. In the space of one evening, you might witness power asserted, bonds reforged, stories born, all under the low roof of carved timber and soot-stained beams. It is not the life of the peasant in the snow-covered longhouse, nor the silence of the burial ship, nor the ambition of the wandering raider. It is something else, a place where the past and future are spoken aloud over fire and drink. And now we return to the present. Tonight, you traveled through time, not in a rush, but in rhythm. You felt the slow ache of winter in a Norse village, tasted the plain bread and bitter cold. You stood beside Ragnar Lothbrok as myth and memory blended into story. You peered into the shadows of a forgotten burial, where two women still sleep beneath carved wood. And you sat quietly among the elite, where stories were currency and silence held meaning. The Viking world was not just violence and valor. It was hunger. It was ceremony. It was warmth hard-earned and memory carefully shaped. And now, in your own quiet place, where warmth surrounds you and the world is still, let the past fade into the hush of night. Let your breath slow. Let sleep find you gently. Until next time, good night.